Okay, so today we're going to talk to you about love, specifically that God is love. I think that's important for every couple to understand that God is love and that He sacrificed His life for us, right? And so when you get into a marriage, you can't talk about love without talking about sacrifice. And that was something that we had to understand. We had to really learn that we need to sacrifice for one another if we're going to make this work. Early on when we started out, we didn't know what sacrifice meant. And so we didn't sacrifice. We were very selfish with our needs and different things. And it wasn't until we started to understand God's nature and how He created us and how He made man and woman to be one with each other and to sacrifice for each other that we understood that it's going to take sacrifice if we're going to make it to that next level and be happy with one another.
And Bae, I want to ask you, when you say sacrifice, what exactly do you mean by sacrifice for one another?
So sacrifice looks, for me, was little things. Sacrificing my right to be right, sacrificing my need and wants to be heard, sacrificing my right to say something. Like if I know that I'm right, that because I want you to be happy, I'm willing to be wrong. Or even sacrificing some of the things that hurt you, that I like doing, spending my time elsewhere, to sacrifice some of that time to spend with you. It's about everyday decisions about sacrifice that I find that the more that I sacrifice, the greater our relationship gets. And after a while, it doesn't become a sacrifice, it becomes a love. And that's the thing about love, is like, who's willing to give in the relationship? Who's willing to sacrifice more in the relationship?
Right. And then I'll be honest and say that I really have learned that from you. Even though God was the center of everything that we did, the center of prayer, because we prayed together, God was able to show us how selfish we was, how some of the choices we was making, it was just to edify myself and not edify us as a couple. How I was living my own life, you was living your own life. I did what I wanted to do. How I was feeling is how I reacted.
And I think that the world is set up that way. It's like the world is set up to make you think that that you got to do you. Like if your spouse isn't acting right, you do you and make sure that you're happy. And that's not love. That's not sacrifice, right? So the world will tell you that when your mate does something wrong, you step to the side and you do you, and you make sure that you're taken care of.
Right. And you know what I hate? I hate when people say, "Oh, I feel like I'm a punk," or "I feel like they getting over on me." There's no such thing as a punk when it comes to your relationship. Like, you're supposed to be vulnerable. You're supposed to be open-hearted. You're supposed to be submissive, like to want to each other.
Yeah, and that, like, as a man, that was like eye-opening. I was like, well, you got to respect me. You got to I was like your master. I got to feel like a man, like I got you under control. And that's not the case. That's not love. Right? That's just me being selfish and feeling like dealing with some insecurity issues and whatnot. Love was saying, no, I'm willing to sacrifice all of that feeling, all of that baggage, so that you're happy. At the end of the day, I want you to be happy. And that's I didn't understand that until we started really discovering who God is. Who created us, and what He was willing to do to make sure that we are happy. And I'm not happy if God's not loving me, right? So He sacrificed His life, right? He when He was angry, he decided not to be angry towards me, that He covered my faults, that His love covers all of my faults. And so when I look at my wife, I want to do the same thing. If God is love, then I have to be loved towards my wife. So that means that, if music and American Idols and different things are telling you that you need to be this certain person in order to get respect, in order to get power and all that stuff, if they're telling you that, you got to understand and decipher that through God's eyes, that's not true power. True power is to be able to sacrifice your life for someone else, for your mate, so that they can live happily ever after, to make sure that they're taken care of. Sacrifice says that even when they're wrong, I'm willing to cover you. I'm not going to point fingers at you. I'm not going to point blame at you. Sacrifice says that I will go through some. I'm willing to go through some things. I'm willing to be patient. I'm willing to be kind, just to ensure your happiness. It's not about me. It's about you.
Right, and I totally agree with what you're saying. And I would just say I remember when God had taught me the meaning of sacrifice, and if I submit onto God, how my life would change. And I remember one time he told me, he said, I want you to do X, Y, Z for Tim. And I'm looking like, God, why? Why would I do that? He doesn't deserve that. And I decided to do it anyway because God wanted me to. And when I did it, Tim had came back 2 days later and blessed me for that. But he had no idea that God was setting him up. But God was teaching me how to be selfless.
Right, and you won't understand true happiness until you're really selfless, until you're willing to give till you have no more to give.
Right.
Because what you find is you become the farmer planting seeds. Those are seeds of love. Your sacrifice are seeds of love. It's not in vain. But what you'll find is the harvest that you reap, the things that you get in return is love. If you're sowing in love, you're going to receive love in return. And it may not happen tomorrow.
Right, I was just about to say that. Don't think you're going to do something that day, and so that day, that person's going to do it back. And you're not even doing it for them. You're doing it for, you're doing it for God, and because of that, God will bless you for that in His time. Sometimes God put us through tests where it might not happen right away, but you just got to keep doing it and keep doing it because I love Him so much. I'm going to do it anyway, whether He returns it or not, because I truly love Him, and God taught me what love really is.
So I hope you guys get the point. We're going to leave you at the end of every segment. We're going to leave you with a few points, just to sum up what we've been talking about. Okay? All right. So I want to give you some tips, something that you could take away with you from today's discussion. The tip that I'm going to leave with you is to find a way to sacrifice. We talked a lot about sacrifice and what that means to the marriage. As a man or as a woman, find something that you can do for your spouse that means that you sacrifice, whether you are angry and you bite your tongue, that you don't say something that is hurtful. Find a way to where you can sacrifice some of your time for your mate. But what you'll find is if you do this over time, it'll lead to great results in your marriage. Let the healing begin. It's all about healing. When you sacrifice, you're solving some of the issues that you're dealing with in your marriage. So find a way to sacrifice this week.
All right. It's point number 1 I would like to leave everybody with for today's discussion. I want to talk about how important it is to pray and how important it is to pray together. There's times my spouse was dealing with some things and going through some things, but because I had that connection with God, God was able to prepare me to be a better helpmate for my spouse. So it's very important to pray and find guidance from God.